welcome everybody for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, we've got the Q&A of the quarterly market update. We are picking this guy's brain over here with your questions from a call that was attended by almost 130 people on Tuesday. I got the stats back.
Wow,
Not
really?
Yeah.
That's even more than I thought. That's incredible.
Not too shabby. And we've got 23 questions. So hang on tight, everybody. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, a man that I affectionately like to call GC because of his genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flow, because he's a great co-host, and because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here.
Have you noticed how I'm not stumbling through words? I was just watching, I was QCing the episode of the last thing that we did.
Yeah.
And I was like, blah, 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 blah,
I feel like
in the intro.
We need like a good blooper reel as of like what we've done lately here. I mean, we could do a good blooper reel every show if we wanted to, but it's been a little while since we've seen some of the things we screw up.
Speaking of blooper reels, if you want to go to past shows and see all the bloopers all put together in all the shows and all the segments segmented into golden nugget playlists, you can go to the JWB YouTube channel and see all the past shows, see all the best nuggets from the past shows. We got some shorts in there. We got all the good stuff in the JWB YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube and you put in JWB or you put Not Your Average Investor Show, take you straight to it. What do you think, GC?
I love it. I loved your sound effects too. I feel like zoop.
So yeah, if you could go there, subscribe to it, whatever, hit the bell. I don't know what YouTube influencers say. We're not influencers. We are news anchor friends.
Yeah, I don't know what we are.
That being said, we do have a tradition around here. Like, well, you know what? You know what I realized is that this is becoming a tradition.
Yeah.
Now, after the quarterly market update, the tradition is that Thursday we answer all the Q&A.
The AMA, ask me anything.
Yeah, it's a new tradition that we have, but we have an old tradition around here, G.
Oh, we do.
All right, do you know what it is?
It is called the roll call, baby.
We got the MVP kicking us off today.
Mr. Lee Bishop.
Everybody's heard of Lee Bishop. We got the patron Santorios of the Not Your Average Investor community.
Michael Santorios.
We got our regulars, Rosalind and Gary Riley from Murrieta, California.
We regard you.
We got Layla Powell, teammate Layla in the house.
Representing.
We got the shaman.
Nadeem Shah.
Not Your Average Investor community. We got the ringmaster.
Drew Barnhill.
Drew Barnhill in the house. We got Denny Davis with his now traditional greeting. Woo, pig suey.
Suey.
We got the mountain man.
Billy Green.
Green from the white powder dusted mountains of Colorado. I bet that
sounds so amazing.
Sight to behold. We got Big Papa in the house. We love it when Big Papa calls it.
Pops, how are you? Good to see you, my friend.
Jay Cohen, Greg's dad's in the house. Who else we got in here? Oh, we got Cody Adams, Mama Bear of the community.
None of this would be possible without her. Good to see you, Cody.
None of this would be possible without Cody. I can't function without Cody, to be perfectly honest.
True.
Who else we got in here? We got Susan Parker in the house saying hello, everybody.
Ooh,
a new name?
New name?
Susan,
right.
Welcome to the community.
Welcome to the party.
Hope you make it a habit out here. Susan, since you are new here, if you change the thing above your name to everyone instead of host and panelists, then the whole community can see what you're typing. So that goes to anybody that's new. Check that out. And we got Misty Johnson checking in.
There we go. Misty, you're coming back every week now. We love seeing you.
Also, Colorado, she says not new, but okay. All right, Susan. I apologize.
Of course she's not new.
I apologize.
Of course she's not new.
All right. That being said, we've got 23 questions to jump in, but we also got a bit breaking news.
Yeah, we do. We got a couple of breaking news.
Well, we got some breaking news and some good news, which is why I questioned myself.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll go with the breaking news first. I got some great news for all of you who were here on the show on Tuesday for the quarterly update. If you remember, I was talking about the investment that is, the JWB investment now. We were going over prices. We were going over things of that nature. We were going over interest rates. And I was sharing that interest rates for JWB clients are lower than what is out there in the marketplace. But those interest rates that I was talking about was 6 3/4. 6.75% is what JWB clients are getting on their investment properties right now. But again, that was just a bold-faced lie, apparently, because as soon as I announced that, which is what it has been recently, those interest rates dropped, which is great for all of us.
Which is great for all of us.
It's
not a lie. It's breaking news.
Yeah, I know. I don't lie.
So negative.
But what has happened is a combination of the Fed holding their Fed funds rate constant and a combination of the employment numbers being more positive than what we were expecting. Some of these things come together and you start to see interest rate fluctuations. And this is a great fluctuation for all of us as investors. So interest rates right now for JWB clients are at 6.375. So down significantly within the past week. And we have talked a lot about how interest rates on our mortgages can go down even if the Fed does not lower that Fed funds rate. And that's what we're seeing here. So interest rates now are even lower than what we talked about on the quarterly call on Tuesday. 6.375 is what you can get as a JWB client for your turnkey rental property portfolio.
So the Fed hasn't moved rates.
Exactly.
But JWB investors' rates have moved.
Well, yeah. So mortgage rates for properties like JWB turnkey rental properties have come down. I won't say this is significantly because of JWB's relationship. It's not like our relationship has dropped it from 6.75 to 6.375. Our relationship keeps it lower than what's out there in the overall marketplace. What has moved is investor demand for mortgages. And so when what we got to think about is on the other side of you paying somebody 6.375% interest, there's an investor out there who is earning 6.375% interest. So overall, when those investors out there who invest in mortgage-backed securities feel like it is a better investment for them, then the interest rate goes down. And so that is a big portion of how our rates overall can come down. It's not all about the Fed moving that. They have a significant influence, but it's about the mortgage premium, which is driven by investor demand. And so when investor demand is higher, as it has been in the past week for mortgage-backed securities, your interest rates can come down and we can get even more positive cash flow.
Look at that. Not even the Fed rates are impervious to supply and demand and market dynamics like we talk about here on the Not Your Average Investor.
Well, yeah, you remember, so on our little note of Not Your Average Investor insights coming forward, we were going to do a whole show on how mortgage rates can come down even if the Fed doesn't lower them. And what do you know? This is a nice little, it's in action right here. So there you go.
What do you know? All right, that is good news, GC.
Yeah.
That is breaking news.
That is breaking news. That's good news and breaking news.
There's good news and breaking news, which is not something that you're very used to. That being said, we got some straight up good news happening, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our mission here at JWB is to change people's lives, and we do that in a number of different ways. And one of the most fun ways we get to do it is we shut down the office every month or two. We bring our entire team to a local organization and we volunteer together. And so one organization that we are very close with is an organization called Rethreaded. And they are here to fight human trafficking. I know you volunteered with Rethreaded and know what a great organization it is in the fight against human trafficking. We care deeply about that mission and those folks that we can help and the organization at Rethreaded. So we went out and we volunteered, and Pablo's team does an incredible job of kind of capturing the moment, and we wanted to share the moment with you all. So without further ado, here we go.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I work at JWB as the Director of Sales and Service. We are out here today at Rethreaded. It's a wonderful opportunity for our organization to be able to take some time away, to really give back to an organization that's just as excited about giving back and community awareness as our company is.
Hi, I am Karen. I work with JWB. I'm a supervisor on our property management side, so I get to work with our property managers and maintenance coordinators every single day. We are spending the day really taking the threads out of leather seats that were donated by Southwest Airlines. By doing this, we're able to provide a raw leather material to our partners at Rethreaded, and they use that material to employ women who have been impacted by human trafficking. And that leather material turns into beautiful products like jewelry and notepads and purses and wallets and all that really great stuff.
Rethreaded really positions themselves as making sure that the community is aware of human trafficking. And when we get opportunities like this to really give our time versus our money, it really just, fills the love cups of all the people in our office.
Pretty cool, man.
It's just, it's the reason why we're here. We're here to be a positive impact on the communities in which we serve. And I love those videos too, because you get to see other folks as a part of the JWB organization that you may not have heard from or met before. And, the more people we get to share on this platform is always better.
Agreed. Love the rethreaded cause. I love philanthropies that are, when I was on the board of Habitat, we took a lot of a pride of talking about how like we're like a hand up, not a hand out. And I feel like Rethreaded is one of those, right? That they provide a safe space of shelter for human trafficking survivors, and they give them jobs and give them job skills while they're there. And they're taking existing leather chairs from Southwest Airlines and upcycling them into a product. And it's like a whole economic flywheel onto its own, started by a human trafficking survivor herself that is a beast of an entrepreneur.
She's amazing.
Super cool. Yeah. Super cool charity, man. Really cool that you guys did that. All right, GC. Do we have any other good news or breaking news?
I mean, I think it's all good news. We got, it's a beautiful day out. We got a roof over our head. We got friends here in the audience.
We did a full run this morning.
We did 3 miles, man. We did 3 miles for the first time in a while.
Yeah. All right. So for those of y'all not aware of it, I've been sick. Greg had surgery. So we really haven't been able to run together like full things. We've been walking in the mornings like a couple of
slow gazelles,
slow baby gazelles, but today we got to run. But more importantly, we now get to answer the questions provided by the community on the quarterly update. I want to encourage you, if you have more questions from the update or you have questions on these questions, you can still use the Q&A function. We'll still answer more questions. But as promised to everybody, GC, first question was from Pamela Myers asking, JWB Jacksonville tour dates yet? Will it come out in an email?
It will come out in an email. We are working hard to secure the venues. This tour that we're putting together is going to be bigger and better and even more fun than what we did last year. And so there's a few venues that we have to absolutely secure. And the last thing I want to do is share a date with you all that may need to change. So we are targeting February of 2024, and we're close to locking down the date. So we'll be there soon. We will definitely let everybody know. Super thankful for all of you for reaching out and telling us the dates that you can make it. That's why I know this is going to be even more fun this year. And for everybody who has reached out and told us a date that is off limits, we've been able to accommodate it for our first choice here. So I think we've got it, and we're going to let all of you know. All of you clients will know, and everybody who's a part of our email subscriber list as well. Even if you're not a client, you're going to be invited. And we'll let you know soon.
All right, here we go. So now first question actually has to do with the market update.
Yes.
Right along Raj, my partner, Raj Bantu asked, is median home price the most accurate indicator of home prices, or is price per square foot a better indicator?
Median home sales price is the best indicator for home prices because that measures home prices. Price per square foot is a good metric to understand what the value of an individual home may be, because you might have varying prices for homes in one neighborhood based on if it's a smaller home or a bigger home. But if you're trying to understand what the home values are for a region, for an MSA, you're going to want to focus on median home sales prices.
There you go. Great question by Raj.
Yeah.
Raj was the next one with a question. Are there stats for, we answered that on the call. Are these stats for Jacksonville market or the national market? These were both, right? Parts of the different call.
Parts of it, we shared the difference between the U.S. market and the Jacksonville market. So things like months of inventory, Jacksonville. Things like pricing, certainly about Jacksonville, but we also shared some data that was relevant for the U.S. market overall, pricing, and we also shared days on market.
Give us a summary of that data that we shared of the U.S. market versus now that we were just talking about a little while earlier, because I think it's important for anybody.
Yeah, and I happen to be looking at it right here, so I'll just kind of rattle off some stats for you guys. Across the U.S. in September of this year, our median home sales price as a country is $412,000. Compare that to Jacksonville at the same time in September, at the end of September, our median home sales price is $350,000. So significantly less. This is one reason why investors flock to Jacksonville, because this is where you can get positive cash flow. Can't do that in those markets that are, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes, and not nearly as easily. And then a comparison point to where we were a year ago in the Jacksonville market, our median home sales price 1 year ago was $347,000. So, our median home sales price has risen from $347,000 to $350,000. Again, substantiating what I have been sharing with you for this entire year is that home values are not going down. They are flat. It's up 0.9% here in Jacksonville and in many other places in the country.
There you go. And the other stats that we talked between national and local is this idea that Gregg laid out, these like really, really interesting trends of two parallel moments in US history, right? We know the real estate market moves in cycles, right? Like we've been feeling this feeling of high inflationary times, the need for the Fed to cool that down so that it doesn't become runaway inflation. Responding by increasing interest rates until a certain point of elongated time with high interest rates, and what that does for the housing market, what that does for the US economy. And while that sounds like everything that we've been going through right now, it was also a period that we went through from 1978 to 1982, namely from 78 to 82, there was a high inflationary environment, cooled off by high interest rates, followed by a recession. And what housing did during that time is from 78 to 82, there was a decrease in home sales, but there was an increase in the price of homes during that time. And then in 81 to 82, when it started to like taper down, there was a 10% decrease in home sales and a 1% increase in the price of homes. That's when it leveled out. And then shortly thereafter in 82, once we got into the recession, which is what the Fed was trying to do, there was a 57% increase in home sales and a 24% increase in home pricing, driven by what the Fed does when we go into recession, which is lower interest rates. And Gregg compared that to where we're at right now, where we've had similar period to what we just described from 21 to 22, high interest, interest rates going up. There was a 15% decline in home sales, 36% increase in home price, kind of like what happened last time. And then now in this last year where it's tapered off 22 to 23, there was a 7% decline in home sales and a stable home price, right? That like 0% increase. It just didn't lose value, but it stayed stable. And what we believe is that what's going to end up happening is that the Fed will succeed. They will have raised interest rates long enough to slow down the economy enough to cause a recession. And once it does, they're going to drop the interest rate, which will likely mirror what happened in the period after, which means increase in home sales, increase in home prices. How'd I do there?
Thought it was pretty good. It's a lot of numbers. Let me just encapsulate the whole thing. Average investors right now are asking themselves, should I wait to buy real estate until interest rates come down? Not your average investors are asking themselves a different question. They know that when interest rates come down, home prices go up. So not your average investors are asking themselves, how can I buy more single family rental properties before interest rates go down? Because it is a direct correlation. When interest rates go down, home prices go up. And so that's what we expect to see. And I don't know exactly when interest rates are going to go down. Hey, they went down a bunch this week. That's really nice. Yes. Right? They can actually come down even if the Fed doesn't lower the Fed funds rate as well. But what we know is when interest rates drop, and I'm talking a drop of, a percentage or even more, when that happens, there is a strong correlation with above average home price appreciation. And that's what we saw from 1982 to 1986. That's what we are on the cusp of at some point here. And that's the opportunity for you all to continue to add to your portfolio, buy more JWB rental properties, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity to maximize your profitability.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the old adage, right? Of like being fearful when everyone's greedy. And when everyone's being fearful, you can get opportunistic if you understand this stuff. And the way to get opportunistic, if you want to follow this, you want to lock in that idea that it's going to go up in as soon as this thing tips, you go to chatwithjwb.com, start that conversation going, and see how we can make it work for you. All right, GC, ready for the next question?
Let's do it.
All right. Erwin Overton says, does JWB only do residential real estate? What are your thoughts on the commercial real estate market?
So, Erwin, first of all, thank you for the question. And I hope you continue to come back to the shows. Hope you're on the show right now. JWB, our hedgehog is our turnkey rental property experience for clients, right? We make it easy for investors to invest in rental properties, and with this vertically integrated approach that we have. And that's focused on single family residential rental properties. And so that's our calling card. That's our bread and butter. That's what gives us opportunities to do other things that are opportunistic. One opportunistic thing that we have done and made a big splash in over the last 3 years is our investment in downtown Jacksonville, which is commercial buildings and mixed use development. JWB has invested over $68 million into downtown Jacksonville and has acquired roughly 20 city blocks in downtown Jacksonville. Now, this is our commitment to our community. This is our commitment to the long-term success of all of our clients out here. And this is us putting our flag in the ground and saying, we are here to serve Jacksonville. We're here to serve one market because we think it's the best thing for our community, and we think it's the best thing for our clients and the best thing for us and our team. So we do that, but the differentiator here is we do that with our own money. And that commitment to downtown Jacksonville is not something that we are packaging up to sell or raising money to, from our clients to be able to profit from it in the short run. It is a long-term play. It is our own money. We have no intention of selling. We expect this to be a catalyst for downtown Jacksonville. So turnkey single-family rental properties, that's what all of our clients invest in with us. The downtown stuff is an investment that JWB is making for our community, for our clients long-term, for JWB, but it's not something that we package up and sell.
Okay. Let me ask you it a slightly different way in case this is what he meant. Let's say, JWB is doing some commercial development. You guys are placemaking in a city, right?
Right.
I find that very different than the average commercial real estate investment.
Good call.
What are your thoughts on, the single family home asset class and investing in commercial real estate these days?
Well, they sound similar, but there's much different profiles to it. The critical need component of single family residential real estate is there, unless people figure out a way that they want to live without having their own home. I feel pretty good about the critical nature and critical need of single family residential houses being there.
Translation, risk mitigation,
demand, especially in a growing market like Jacksonville with population growing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are reasons why I love this asset class. It's not all upside. It's high floor plus upside. And that's what you get in single family residential. Commercial office space is one example of it's not as critical of a need as people assumed it was back in the day.
Yep.
So there's a lot of concern that people have about commercial office out there. It's a combination of the pandemic and understanding that commercial office space is less in demand than it was prior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a combination of the loans that are supporting the commercial office industry right now. Those loans have short maturities. They might be 5-year loans or 7-year loans or maybe even less.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those loans were taken out 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And so they're coming due. And that is not the same as single family residential. Single family residential has these beautiful 30-year mortgages. And that is risk mitigation in itself as well. And they're fixed rates. Commercial, on the other hand, many times it's variable and it has, it's coming due in 5 years or 7 years. What many commercial real estate investors have done for decades is they just plan to refinance into a new loan when that comes up. But guess what? As commercial real estate values have gone down because there's less demand, they can't do that and pull their money out. They can't do that without having to bring significant capital to get the new loan. So these are all things to be paying attention to for commercial office specifically. But again, there's a number of different ways to invest in commercial properties. There's warehouses, right? There's, apartments,
even inside office, medical office.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So it is something to understand deeply before you do it. And there are certain risk factors that you just don't see in single family residential. Now, with all that being said, guess what? JWB is buying a commercial office downtown. So we are, but we're doing that. We're going to occupy half of it. And, that makes sense for us. And, it's always a great risk mitigator, even in commercial office, when you have a downtown that is growing, like Jacksonville's downtown is growing. So that was a long rant on all that, but hopefully somewhere in there, you got some value out of that.
Everyone. Awesome, man. All right, you know what? We got somebody in the house asking a question. His name, Billy Green, the Mountain Man.
The Mountain Man.
I like that Bill Green has changed his name to Billy Green officially on the Zoom call. I appreciate that.
Would it be great if he just got like business cards and it says Billy Green, the Mountain Man, and just passing them around?
It can't hurt.
I mean,
it can't hurt.
It's just an ask, Bill. It's just an ask.
All right. Now he's got a question. Currently, I'm a residential redeveloper in Metro Denver, and also a JWB client. Because of my relationship with JWB, is there a possibility for a client like myself to borrow from JWB Capital Holdings for a real estate renovation, whereby I pay 15% per annum and you can reward your private lenders with 10% on the same deal? Arbitrage. The basic question is, are there any private lending opportunities from JWB to its clients?
I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So this is an ask if JWB would lend the money out to our clients. Am I understanding that correctly?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope.
Okay.
No, we don't do that. And, one, at the end of the day, we can make a better return on our capital than lending it out to a client. And the other thing too, is when clients lend money to JWB, they know that JWB is borrowing the money. We are not a middleman to lend that money to another client. And that's part of the reason why we've been able to raise over $300 million in private lending funds and have paid everybody back with principal and interest now for almost 18 years now. It's us. It's JWB borrowing the money. So it's just not something that we're interested for both of those reasons as far as lending the money out.
I do respect you shooting your shot, Billy Green.
I love it. I love it.
It's always good, man. I don't know if you watched the episode with him, but like his whole business model is really interesting. Right?
Yeah.
Like he has essentially not just doing wholesaling, but essentially finding people who have elder relatives in need for long-term care, right? To live in like an assisted care facility and leveraging the sale of the house in order to pay for that. Super interesting kind of like mix of two problems that need to happen and an innovative solution. So I'm not surprised he's throwing out innovative solutions.
I love it.
Trying to do, man.
I love it.
So, all right. So anyways, that being said, Bill Shields. Buenas tardes, amigo Bill Shields. Good to have you back in the house, buddy. He's asking, how long will housing appreciation take to course correct back to around 4.6% average since we had 2+ years of around 20% appreciation?
Let me make sure I'm seeing this. So how long will housing appreciation take to course correct back to around our 4.6% average that we had 2+ years ago? There's a couple of things that come into play there. I think what Bill's asking is like, when are you going to hit that median sales projection line? Assuming that sales projection line was 4.6%, you can get there a few different ways, right? You can get there at, 3% home price appreciation over an extended period of years. You could have housing go down next year in order to get there. So it's really, there's a number of different factors. It would be, do you expect house prices to go down? If you expect house prices to go down, it could hit there, in a month. Do you expect housing prices to continue to normalize and then go up over time? Actually, maybe they don't go up 4.6%. Well, if you believe that, which is more in line with what we believe here at JWB, then it would hit that 4.6% line over a greater number of years. The line now is actually 5%. If you actually go back and look at the average home price appreciation rate for the Jacksonville market since 1982, the line is at a 5% rate right now. And actually, I'm glad you brought this up, Pablo, because you can see that we're actually right at that line right now.
Yeah.
Now, so to caution everybody, many times the sales price goes up and down and goes below the line and goes up and below the line. We haven't seen that so much just because home values have been so undervalued for the better part of a decade here. But it's not going to be surprising, shouldn't be surprising to anybody out there that you see that home values actually dip below the median projected sales price line, especially due to seasonality. And then guess what? They'll go right back up again. And so it kind of teeters that line. And that's how we have a good sense of where home prices will be in the long run.
There you go. All right, cool. Great question, Bill Shields. I like that.
I love these, man. These questions are awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Those were new questions. Now back to the list of questions. We got one from a gentleman by the name of Lee Bishop. You may have heard of him. He's known as the MVP of the community.
It just sounds like an MVP.
He says, I like how Gregg picks the tough times over the last 20 years, then prove that with home price appreciation, only how turnkey investor cash can win. But I really would love to see all the profit centers to make a huge impression for everybody on how they win. Yeah. Great stats, Greg. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I really wanted to do that as well. So if you can pull that up, Pablo, we can pull that slide up. For those who weren't on the call, I started to think about all of the reasons to not invest since 2007, and then how it has actually played over that time as far as how much profits have been generated from just one house purchase. So this slide, all of the reasons not to invest since 2007. So this is what our MVP is talking about here. We went from 2007 to 2009, and we talked about all of these reasons to not invest. Number one, it was a housing crash. It was a great recession. If there wasn't a reason to not invest at that time for most people out there, that's your number one reason. It's a whole lot stronger than what we're facing here today. I can tell you that. I guess who was buying houses at that time, Pablo?
Your boy.
Yeah, I was buying properties at that time. And all that's happened since then is rent prices have gone up 4% a year. Home prices have gone up almost 4% a year. And if you just bought one Jacksonville home at that time in 2007, you would have pocketed $155,000 just in home price appreciation. So what Lee is recognizing here, because he is the MVP, is that that's just one profit center. There's 4 other profit centers, and I did not include those on the slide. It's a whole lot of assumptions that I would have had to have made at that time in order to kind of illustrate the point of net rental income, illustrate the point of tax savings, illustrate the point of principal pay down. And I thought that the point was made strongly enough just by throwing $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 of, waiting, missing out on that. So you're right, Lee, with more assumptions and more granular data, we could put that up there and it would just reinforce the point even more. But hopefully this turns some heads here and just understand that there's always going to be a reason to not invest. Mm-hmm. In every asset class, there's going to be a reason to not invest. And some of the reasons that we hear about not investing in real estate are more public and more publicized, I feel like, because they are a more emotional thing. But this asset class just continues to perform. Continues to perform. High floor and upside. That's what we've seen 2007 to 2009, 2010 to 2011, 2020 to 2021. We were going through the pandemic. And then even last year, as we were dealing with high inflation, just continues to perform. I'm kind of like a broken record. I'll be saying the same thing in a year, 2 years, 3 years. And guess what? You know the answers to the test. It's just going to continue to perform.
All right. Great question, MVP. Patron Santorius of the community, Michael Santorios, asked, Greg, do you see any key trends that you believe will shape the single-family rental market in Jacksonville for the next 5 to 10 years?
Do I see any key trends that will shape the housing market? Yes, I see 2 key trends. I see lack of supply. Mm-hmm. Lack of supply equals high floor for pricing. Then I see interest rates. And while interest rates are elevated like they are, it's dampening demand. But because we have such a lack of supply, it keeps that high floor. It keeps stability in the pricing of this asset, which is what we're experiencing. And then I think of what's next, because the supply problem is not going to be fixed soon. When I say the supply problem is not going to be fixed soon, what that means is that is ripe for additional home price appreciation. Mm-hmm. So it's a problem for our society as far as not having enough housing, but as investors, you're going to profit from that. Mm-hmm. And I wish that we had more supply of housing because it would help with the affordability housing crisis. Yep. But the reality is while supply is low and demand is higher, prices go up. Mm-hmm. So 2 trends that are going to shape the market over the next 5 years. Number 1, low supply of housing, not changing anytime soon. And then what happens next with interest rates? At some point, they are going to go down. If you see a market right now that is flat with, call it 8% interest rates out there for the average homeowner out there, just imagine what home price appreciation would be today if that was a 7% interest rate or a 6% interest rate, because that is what we're going to see at some time. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, we're still going to have the supply problem and home prices are going to go up substantially.
I like where you stand real solid on the supply issue because you know those numbers and they're tried and true. I like to take assumptions here. So let's talk about trends that I believe in. Right? Okay. Like the first thing that came to mind as well for me was remote work and Zoom towns. And I know that you're a big believer in being in office, right? So like, while one could say this idea of you can work from anywhere would aid warmer climate, would aid lower state taxes and stuff like that, I'm willing to forsake that one because I think the book is out on remote work.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something. I don't think that the affordability crisis is going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And while the affordability crisis affects everybody, I believe that it affects these like high-priced markets negatively, and it affects below median home price markets positively.
Right.
And I think the cat's out of the bag on Jacksonville being a great place to live and a better place than you thought as an economic opportunity 5 years ago when, like my friends used to be like, Jacksonville, why are you moving to Jacksonville? Right? Like people, I remember going home to Miami, that first Emerge America show, and be like, dude, I love this place. I think it's the next Orange County. Like, yeah, okay, bro. Right? Like in that, because that's how people talking about me. Literally the guy sounded like that.
Gotcha.
But now people see this city in a very different light, so I think there is a trend of demand that is going to continue to happen for living in Jacksonville that's going to be buoyed by the affordability crisis and what this town represents. And I think there's another trend that I cannot believe you didn't say, which is downtown.
Yeah.
Like downtown Jacksonville in the next 5 to 10 years will look profoundly different than what it looks like right now. And that only adds to reinforcing that trend of demand continuing to rise here. So I would also add those two.
I think those are wonderful points, and I concur.
All right, say less. Here we go. Next one is Bellegrain asks, do you see any recent data last 2 or 3 years per how the unusually large influx of migration affects these housing numbers for rental prices, inventory, and purchase?
Do we see any unique data that would affect? I'm sorry, I can't see the question.
Yeah, do you see any recent data in the last 2 to 3 years how, like he's basically saying, there's a large influx of people moving to Jacksonville. Have you seen any data that shows what the effect of the amount of people moving to Jacksonville that has been so large has done for home prices, rents, et al?
Yeah, I'm waiting for some of this data to come from the U.S. Census. The last data that we have is actually pre-pandemic, where they make it very easy to compare by MSA, which is your metropolitan statistical area. So it's very easy to compare real estate markets when the census data comes out, and we just haven't had access to it. So it's just you're kind of connecting the dots here, right? So if we go back to June of 2020, that was the first time that we had over 3,000 sales in a month in Jacksonville, home sales in a month in Jacksonville. And that's when interest rates were as close to zero as you can possibly. A Fed funds rate was as close to zero as it can be. Interest rates were probably in the 4s at that time. And it was a much different interest rate environment than what we have today. Well, when we ran the stats for home sales here in Jacksonville in September, which you generally have less sales in September than you had in June in a year, we still had over 2,600 home sales here in 2023 in Jacksonville. The first time we ever crossed 3,000 home sales was June of 2020. That means that every other month in Jacksonville's history was less than 3,000. So if you kind of connect some dots here, even without having the actual data of population growth here for our wonderful city, that people are moving here and they buy houses. And that's one of the reasons why our sales numbers continue to remain high. Historically speaking, and that's one reason why, again, home prices are flat here in Jacksonville. They're not declining. They haven't ever declined here as we've been talking about this, but many people are kind of surprised by that. So I think if you kind of connect a lot of dots there, that there's a lot of people moving to Jacksonville. I've read reports about like U-Haul, U-Haul data that says, who's moving to Jacksonville based on the U-Haul trucks going from one location to another. I've seen LinkedIn, they track how many people have changed the place that they live to Jacksonville. So you see all of these that are not, exactly the U.S. Census. And then you see home sales that are still elevated here. You still see home prices continuing to remain strong. So I think you put all that together and it paints a clear picture for me.
I'm trying to think of other like rich data places that are like live and in full effect. And I think of Uber as this like wonderful thing of that. I wonder what kind of like data you can teach from like Uber on like Uber rides or drivers or whatever, stuff like that.
True.
Or even like Apple knows where your phone is, right? Like, what is the like the movement of like Apple iPhones to Jacksonville versus like purchase of products and things like that? I don't know, man. I think that'd be,
call up your buddy Tim Cook and see if we can get access to that data.
I'll get Tim on the phone immediately,
right,
or Amazon ordering orders. Anyways, all right. So interesting. Michael Santorius puts in the chat. He's got some stuff here, patron Santorius. I'd love to hear your takes on what you think the trends are, by the way, if you want to put that in the chat. Because he puts, Billy, strong job market. The average home income in Jacksonville, Florida has increased by 33.7% over the last 5 years, from 59,464 in 2019 to 79,817 in 2023. That's pretty significant.
The average home income. Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I missed the income part.
You're good. All right. Okay. We got a question from Carlos Andres Lopez, aka Cal. He says, being told by my JWB account manager that there is an ample supply in the renting market in Jacksonville, which is affecting the time to rent and ability to increase prices. Your comments, please.
Yeah, I think there's some things to keep in mind here, right? If we're coming from where we were a year ago, absolutely, there's more inventory on the renting market in Jacksonville than there was. That should make sense. At the same time, right? Our kind of, the way we kind of measure ourselves is we have about 6,000 homes that we manage at any point in time. And, historically, kind of for our space, you're going to have about 10% vacancy at any point in time. So if you manage 6,000 homes, the average vacancy across a property management company would be about 600 homes at one point in time. That's a lot of homes, and we don't have anywhere near that, I can tell you that. For JWB, historically, we're going to be between 5 to 7% vacancy, and right now we're at 5% vacancy. So, we manage close to 6,000 homes. We're actually a little bit below 5% because we're always going to have a couple of hundred homes on the market. And so when we talk about us having more homes on the market than we did a year ago, it's two factors, right? It's the fact that last year wasn't normal, and we're always going to have more homes than we had last year. We talked about it last year as being not normal. And then the other fact is that we've got, roughly 1,000 more units that we manage as well. And so rather than focusing on the number of homes that are on the market, what we really focus on, we take that into account, but it's the velocity, right? How quickly are we moving the homes? It is totally fine for an organization that manages 6,000 homes to have a few hundred homes on the market. That's just the percentages. That's 5% vacancy. That's best in class for property management companies, but we have to keep moving the homes, moving the velocity, and we're continuing to do that.
Okay. All right. Michael Santorius has another one. Greg, great information. Do you think inventory levels will increase once the current 3.9% unemployment levels increase like they did in 1982?
Do we think months of inventory left? I got to see these questions. I'm sorry, man. These are like tough questions. I got to think about it. I haven't seen these before, everybody. So
inventory levels will increase once unemployment goes up.
Do I think inventory levels will increase once unemployment goes up? There's so much that comes into inventory levels. One of them would be, I guess unemployment, but I think more closely to interest rates. Right now, we have we can call them, what do you call them? Golden handcuffs when you're in a position where you can't leave in your job or whatnot. Well, as an economy, as homeowners or real estate investors, we have golden handcuffs. If you got an interest rate at any point over the last few years, call it the last year and a half, where, the vast majority of folks who own homes that have a mortgage on them have interest rates that are below 6%. So what that's doing is people are just not selling their homes, because why would you sell a home with a 6% interest rate to go and buy another home with an 8% interest rate? And so it's keeping a lot of supply off the market. So I think the biggest thing that's going to increase supply will actually be when interest rates come down. And, that'll be something to take into account. If you kind of play the extremes though, like I don't ever see us going back down to the low interest rates that we had before. So I don't see that you're going to have this huge glut. I don't think that we're going to get back to 3% interest rates or even 2% interest rates for the general public out there. But I do think that you'll see more supply come on the market as interest rates come down, because they will make more sense for sellers of homes to sell that home and eventually buy another one.
Got it. Okay, cool. Got another one here from BJ McKay. Says, this labor/buyer pool seems different than years earlier. Post-COVID, not go to work, syndrome. How much have you seen change in the amount of qualified buyers in comparison?
It's interesting. We spend so much time on the front end talking about all the important conversations that go with buying one of our turnkey rental properties. And a part of that is making sure that a client is qualified. But the vast majority of the time, we will find out that it's just not a good fit with somebody well before we actually find out if they're financially qualified. By the time that somebody, talks with us, has a few phone calls, and we're ready to actually, put some homes under contract and into their plan, it almost never happens that somebody's just not financially qualified at that point. It would have happened in one of those first couple of phone calls. So it's hard I don't have any data that would tell me that some of the labor market differences are leading to less qualified, buyers in the JWB realm. But what I can tell you overall is that interest rates, as they've gone up closer to 7.5% or even 8% for the general public, that inherently is going to remove a whole lot of people from the qualified buyer pool, which is what you see. That's the goal of the Federal Reserve, is to limit or dampen demand for housing. That's what they have done. They're really suppressing other demand that otherwise would be there. So we don't see it in our model because we spend so much time talking about all of the conversations that are important for a lasting, healthy relationship. But in the overall market, you're right. It is harder for people to qualify for housing across the board.
Got it. Okay. So Billy Green's got another question. I'm now putting him up here, Greg. I've learned my lesson.
Thank you, buddy.
Is the JWB team well equipped to help me with the math per money saved or lost in the instance where I refinance my properties that have loans with prepayment penalties? In other words, can they help me calculate the upside or downside of doing that if interest rates drop in the next year?
100%. We can do that.
Easy peasy. All right. We got a couple live questions here from Leo Faraganan.
Dun, 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 dun.
Faraganan.
Dun, 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 dun.
He says, sorry I came late, but what are the other major projects coming to Jacksonville? Can you name a few? Thanks, brothers. You guys doing a really awesome job.
The major projects that are coming to Jacksonville. You want to pull up something that's really cool? Actually, I was going to talk about something. This isn't a major project, but one of the things that is happening is that major employers and major retailers and restaurateurs are coming to Jacksonville. And I was going to save it for some breaking news for a time in the future, but now will be a great time to talk about the co-op.
Yeah, why don't you start talking about it?
Yeah, so I've been really excited about sharing kind of the full picture of everything that we are doing downtown. And the full picture involves leasing out our space to wonderful restaurants and, of course, renting the units, the residential units that are on top of many of our spaces and being fully occupied. Well, guess what? I have some great information to share there. In our 218 Church Street building, which we absolutely will go by on the Not Your Average Investor tour coming in February of next year, we're going to take a look at 218 Church Street. This was a building that was vacant for 30 plus years and was unbelievably disgusting walking through that building the very first time that I walked through it. And it now is so beautiful. It's got 24 studio apartments up top. Half are short-term rentals, half are long-term leases. It's fully occupied up top. We have 3 spaces down below. One of them is occupied by a florist. They're operating right now. We have 2 other restaurant spaces. One of them is, we can now talk about this company, which is called the Co-op, Frose and Eatery. It's coming to 218 Church Street downtown. This is a company that's never been in Jacksonville before, but they reached out to us and had they were so excited to come to our location here in Jacksonville. They're in other places like Nashville, and they have quite a following. I feel like I think some celebrities frequent their spot, and they're always doing great things on social media. So they have a real buzz about them. And they're in other places like in South Carolina and Nashville and other great markets. They're looking at Jacksonville and they say, I want to be there because I know what it looks like for Nashville to turn around and revitalize downtown. And I want to be a part of that. And they can get a locked in rent at a rate that they think is so low, again, compared to other markets out there. So they're coming into our building. And so they announced this. I'm actually a little bit late to announce it here on the show, but they announced towards the end of September. And yeah, so the big picture here is now you guys are seeing the full vision of this. This is taking it from a historic building that hadn't been occupied for 30 years. It now is an asset that is providing jobs, in the community. It is providing residences in the community. It's having the short-term and the long-term potential renter situation right there. And it's a great thing for our downtown and a great thing for our clients as this happens more and more and more. And then, you know, great thing for JWB in the long run.
I mean, I know what Froze is.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend that isn't sure what Froze is. Would you explain that to my friend?
I looked it up. I was like, what is Froze?
No, Froze.
Like a blended like rosé slushy thing, I think.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, I'm clearly not on the marketing team for the co-op.
Too hip for us, but perfect for the demographic that's going to want to live downtown. All right, here we go. Ronald Thwing asks, would new builds or existing homes have better appreciation?
It's a great question. Over full market cycles, we don't see a difference. You got to remember that a new build is just a new build the first year that you own it. Full market cycles are 10 to 20 years, and over 10 to 20 years, we've run the data. We don't see any difference as far as home price appreciation rates between new builds and renovations. So I'm agnostic to both.
Easy peasy answer. All right. We got another one from our MVP. He says, banks have changed the policies about lending from the 2007-2008 period, where they lend to anyone who had a heart rate to a much more stable lending practice that has stabilized the homeowner experience. Do you see anything like that happening again in the event of the next inflation crisis?
Do we see anything like that happening again in the event of the next inflation crisis? I'm wondering what we mean by the next inflation crisis, but what we have seen since then is lending standards that are much, much higher. And it started in 2010 and it continues to be much stricter, which is healthy for everybody. So we love that. You know, I think as you start to see disruptions in the economy, especially, I think about commercial lending. And the commercial lending world, as you know, potentially there's an issue with commercial real estate, especially office space, and what that would do. And generally, when you know one type of real estate asset class maybe takes a dip, as we may see with commercial office, that usually leads to lending standards that are tightened around there. And you know, many times that extends beyond just commercial office to all types of commercial. That could potentially extend to residential as well. So I think, you know, those policies that they made were so significant that those are going to be lasting as far as making it more difficult for people to be able to get a loan, which was a great thing coming out of the Great Recession period. But I think that you always see some loosening and some tightening depending on where the overall economy is and how those certain asset classes are performing.
Great response. Lee agrees. All right. We got a couple more from Tuesday and then a couple here live. So right along Raj says, as per the numbers, JWB collects around 90 million plus in rent for this year. That's a huge number. Is that about accurate?
Yeah. So about 5 times. No, 90 million is too high. Yeah. You know, so
of rent collection.
Yeah. Rent collection. Yeah. We just crossed the $5 million threshold. We made a big deal about
that. Was the $5 million that you pay out. That's not collection, right?
That is true. So it's about 10% higher is what we would collect. And then any money that is held back from me. So yeah, so maybe 10%. I think that's high, but you know, call it, 60, 70 million-ish in rent every single year. Yep.
Still a huge number officially. All right. Gerard Wendling has a question. Hey guys, what is the average lease renewal rent increase compared to a new lease?
The average lease renewal increase. Oh goodness. I'm having a brain lapse right here. Our rent renewal increase. So it's I think it's man, I'm having a little brain lapse. It's either 3 or 4%.
You're gonna have to figure that out and get back to us. All right.
My team's gonna make so much fun of me right now. Sometimes I got so many numbers jumping off in my head. It's 3 or 4%. It's somewhere around there is our lease renewal increases. And then on the front end, we're always delivering market rent when we sign a brand new lease right off the bat. And that's what right in line with our evaluations, which show 3.6% average increases each year. And that's how we're able to hit the numbers we put in front of clients.
Okay. All right. So Lee Bishop has another question here live. He's asking, has JWB changed the way they market for homes and acquire them? The current state of buying from people who need to sell are using seller financing. Does JWB use that tactic to keep its inventory?
We don't use seller financing. I love seller financing, especially if you're a smaller operation or an individual investor. I'm a big advocate for it. But when we run an organization like this, there's 100 people here. It's too hard to do because there's so many variables to doing it well. So we don't use seller financing when we acquire our inventory. And
have you changed anything around acquisitions in recent history?
Yeah. You know, we stand in such a position of strength because for many, many years we bought 500, 700, even 900 properties a year. And we did all of that so that we could have inventory that would be built out in the future. And we bought those properties, you know, over the last 10 years when land prices and home prices were a lot less than what they are today. And so we're in a position of strength now where we can be very, very selective on the properties that we need to acquire. For, you know, when I shared with you all of our company KPIs on Tuesday, you know, the total number of homes that we've acquired this year, 62. It's not because we don't believe this is a great market. It's because we've got 3,000 lots in inventory. Mm-hmm. And so we can make the decision to be very picky and choosy about the assets that we want to continue to buy. And so that's the biggest thing that we've changed is it's our criteria for buying properties right now is much stricter. And that's to the benefit of our clients, the benefit of our team. It's nice to be in a position of strength when it comes to inventory.
BJ McKay has a request. Bring back the single page mailer pamphlet.
Oh, yeah. You know what we used to do is we used to send out a lot of direct mail, and I would write a newsletter every single month and we would hand deliver that. We do so much more than what I used to do back in the day. I would write that newsletter and we would mail that out to clients. Now we do the show twice a week. Now we have the Facebook group. Now we do, there's a whole lot of newsletters that we send out electronically. So, but I'll put in a good word for you, BJ, as far as the old school direct mail campaign. We'll see if we can do that.
Michael Santorio says he liked the Facebook Live walk and talks. When is that coming back, GC? We
hear a lot about that.
We do.
You know, and every time we get really good feedback.
Sergio Preda saying those were great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
You get a lot of, I remember when you first started doing that, one of your competitors reached out. It was like, my dad, who's my business partner, says that I need to be doing this because you're crushing it on this thing. I remember all that.
You know what? Let's see if we can make that work. Pablo and I are thinking about all the initiatives that we're planning in 2024. Let's put that near the top of the priority list.
Yeah, walk and talk, baby.
Okay.
Misty Johnson, I think this is going to be an easy one for you. Will JWB ever expand outside of Jacksonville?
You know, Misty, we get asked that question all the time. Our answer is we believe that it is better for all of our investors and our entire community to go a mile deep rather than a mile wide. We want to be here. We want to be in Jacksonville. We believe that's how we can deliver better returns on investment for you. And we can make so much more of an impact by choosing one market and staying in one market. And then, oh, by the way, our entire team is here. We love being in Jacksonville. And if you ever got the opportunity to stand and be a part in one of our Tuesday morning meetings, which is a company-wide meeting we do every Tuesday, there's magic in that meeting. And the thought of recreating that magic over, you know, city after city after city is not very appealing. And I think there's a lot of risk in it. So for all those reasons, we're not going anywhere. We're here. We're in Jacksonville. See that changing.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, agreed. I just figured you'd be like, no, and move forward. I like how you answered that. Last question here. Billy Green. Oh, Sergio Prieto says, GC for president 2024. You going to do it? You going to run for president?
Oh, no, thanks.
All right. Billy Green, last question here. Can you share a bit about the current condition of the infrastructure of Jacksonville per future single family and mixed family new builds? As a Florida outsider, it seems to me that the ocean and existing business and residential areas would restrict new growth in 2024 and beyond, or maybe not.
Would restrict new growth in 2024 and beyond. So my first thought is that Jacksonville it's kind of like a blank canvas in many places, right? We're the largest city by square miles in the contiguous United States. We're 3/4 the size of the state of Rhode Island. There is a lot of land in Jacksonville and Duval County. And, you know, this is one reason that companies like to come to Jacksonville is because where there's a lot of space and it hasn't been fully developed, you can get relatively low land prices in order to build your warehouse. It's one of the reasons why Amazon started to come here in 2017 with their first distribution facility. And now they have 12 distribution facilities.
Wow. 12,
and
really?
counting.
Wow.
Yes. So there is a lot of room and growth opportunity to expand simply because we have so much land and a lot of it has been underdeveloped. From an infrastructure perspective, we're right where we need to be able to support that growth. So no concerns there. In fact, our last mayor, Mayor Lenny Curry, who was a guest of the show. Great time.
Right here.
And that's right. That's right. He rolled out his last budget, had significant investments in infrastructure for our great city. And Mayor Donna Deegan has continued to make sure that that's a priority for residents in many communities surrounding downtown Jacksonville, many of the same communities we invest in. So we're really excited about those initiatives. And then the last thing is just the opportunity to expand and grow downtown. It's a blank canvas in itself, right? Yeah. You're on the water. You have these 3.9 square miles where you have a lot of vacant parcels of land. Part of those 20 blocks that we've bought are just vacant, not even a building on it. Yeah. You just don't see that in a market that has, 1.6 million people living in that market, which is what we have here in Jacksonville. And we also have a blank canvas when it comes to historical buildings that could use a fresh coat of paint or two, which is a lot of our projects as well, especially that one that I shared with you at 218 Church Street. So I don't see any limitations for growth from an infrastructure or from a land perspective in Jacksonville. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. People look at Jacksonville as being a great place because of those reasons.
I would agree with you, man. Bill, as I can give you as the man on the streets, and I always kind of like lean back to my experience living in Miami as well. A couple of things, right? Like in Miami, we had the ocean and then we had the Everglades. There's literally, and then below it was the Keys. Like there was literally nowhere you could grow, and it continued to grow and it just densified, right? So you can always densify is the story. But within that story is the story of infrastructure. And what I've experienced here living in Jacksonville versus having lived in Miami is that every street that I'm, every so often the streets that I use seem to be expanding. There seems to be like a real investment in infrastructure going on around me. Right now it's San Pablo Road. And for whatever reason, the pain of the infrastructure improvement, like my wife and I always joke around about how people in Jacksonville talk about how Jacksonville traffic is so bad.
I know, right?
And to us, it's a joke because we come from a city that really had bad traffic. And even during the infrastructure improvements, it really isn't that bad.
I know.
So, I agree with what you're saying. Like there is still plenty of space to expand, right? Like there's only ocean on one side, north, south, east, and west, tons of space for Jacksonville to continue to expand. What Greg was saying is that it's not very dense still. There's still plenty of area to densify as well. And within it all, there is a infrastructure that continues to happen and it continues to go well from like what I can see. Like projects of infrastructure here end and it gets better. It's not like what I've been used to living in Miami, where it's like, man, the 836 has been under construction forever. It has sucked forever, and it continues to suck right now.
Yeah.
Things here seem to do well. So I don't know, man. I think there's plenty of space for it, and I think they're doing a really good job as somebody who lives here.
I love the question coming from an outsider who's not here in Florida. Those things matter, and so super appreciate that question.
For sure. Last point here. BJ McKay says, I wouldn't have received a mailer. I'd be in the Florida darkness.
Oh, wow. So, man. I tell you what,
put that in the marketing
we got so many great ideas coming from the show today.
Yeah.
The walk and talks, throwing a little bit of some of the old school kind of ways that we used to relate to our clients and new clients and some stuff, direct mail. I like it. Thank you guys.
The tradition continues. After the market update, we do the Q&A. At the end of the day, the best place for a Q&A, if you like Q&As, is chatwithjwb.com because you get to have some personal time with the team, answer your questions and what you're doing and does it make sense to you and do you have assets available to you and how are they going to perform. So go to chatwithjwb.com, book a call if you got, if you want a private 30-minute Q&A session. And beyond that, on Tuesday, we're doing is it a good time to buy right now? That's the theme of Tuesday's show. So if you're wondering whether this like high interest rate, high price environment, economic recession, blah, 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 all the stuff that we're all worried about, and you're still wondering, is it a good time to buy? Show up on Tuesday for the show. I want to thank the community for showing up today. You came in droves on Tuesday, and then you showed up again today. So you really make this show the best thing that it can be by adding your questions and putting GC over here to the test. Any last words here, GC?
Just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We try to bring so much value, especially for these quarterly calls, and you guys give us so much love. I see all of the hearts and the the hand pounds and the thumbs up from you guys. I feel like a little kid. Like I see my kids, they get some of those things, and I'm like, I've never really had those before.
Gold
so,
star
all those things, they matter. So thank you guys. Thank you for spreading the word and bringing your friends and family to the show. If you would like for them to be a part of this, send out this show, send it to them over text or whatnot, or send them, get them to register for the next show so they can be a part of this as well, because we have something really special here and you guys make it that way. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you told everybody what to tell your friends to do. What should they tell their friends not to do?
Don't be average.